Russ, first off, great to have you here on 103.9 The Maverick. Thanks so much for joining us. And what a week that it's been. But now that the dust is cleared from all of the game day traditions announced, let me ask you this. Which one excites you the most? Because there's a whole lot going on.
Yeah, well, Woody, thanks for having me on. And it's been quite the circuit. People care about Buckeye football. They care about Ohio Stadium. I call ourselves a public trust of the state of Ohio. And I think there's no better example than what we did this week in terms of how people care, and they have opinions, and that's great. That's what's great about the passion. I think the biggest thing that we wanted to create in all of this was, how do we stir emotion like in the moment? How do we create enough flexibility? For years and years, you always had a game script and everything was like down to the second, and you didn't deviate from that script, even though an emotional play, a big moment, and then you went to a presentation and you kind of killed the crowd, or you went to a sponsor advertisement, which we need sponsors, we need revenue, all those things, but we just wanted to build in creativity. So I think when you throw in the towel, you throw in the fans can earn a Buckeye leaf because they were loud on third down.
I love that,
by the way. You throw in new music. People think that we're taking away Hang On Sloopy. That's not what we're doing. We actually think Sloopy can be more powerful in a more organic moment versus always being just slotted there between the third and fourth quarter. So we involve the band, we involve Blocko leadership. So I think the flexibility around creativity and emotional reactions and moments is what has me most excited.
OSU Athletic Director Ross Bjork here on the Workday Kickoff on 103.9 The Maverick. I'm glad you brought that up, because the only dissent that I saw that I could find online, Ross, was you were taking some heat in one online pub because of the moving of Hang On Sloopy. And I think you accurately explained it there. You're just trying to make it maybe more impactful?
That's exactly right. And, again, working a lot with the band. The band is legendary here, right? It's the best damn band in the land. I mean, for a reason. The band's legendary. So how do we make them actually even more impactful? And again, organic moments around emotion, around a big play, around, just a reaction to what maybe happened on the field. Let's have the band say, you know what, this is when we should play Hang On Sloopy. And so involving them, but just, again, let's not have it just so regimented that we have no flexibility to capitalize on a moment, is reasons why we moved Hang On Sloopy to give us more flexibility.
I'll tell you, the one that excites me, and I talked about this on the show the day that you announced it, is the OSU crowd being awarded the Buckeye Leaf with the season-long accumulation of how many illegal procedure. That's genius, and that's going to be copied everywhere, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. Again, it gives the fans something to grab onto. It gives the fans something to achieve. Right. And, then look, after a while, maybe that turns into like a QR code and they could redeem something through a sponsor activation, or, there's a lot of cool things that can happen. You see a lot of times where, the visiting team missed a free throw and everybody got a Chick-fil-A sandwich or whatever. I mean, you see some of those kind of promotions. So you could do things like that as this thing builds. And again, it really gives the fans something to latch onto.
And the color outs are simple, but I'm excited that you're doing them because Penn State's done those stupid whiteouts for years. And I like the fact that you're flipping it to a blackout on November 1st.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, scarlet for the Texas game.
Right.
Everybody remembers, our team coming out in all scarlet for the Tennessee game, that electric atmosphere. So again, is every game necessarily going to be the same? It may depend on the opponent. It may depend on game time. We recognize that. But part of this is we want all of these things that transcend. No matter when the game is, here's the things that are going to happen, and here's the things that create emotion around being a Buckeye. So the color outs are a part of that as well.
Ohio State Athletic Director Ross Bjork, our guest on Woody's Workday Kickoff on 103.9 The Maverick. So this obviously didn't happen overnight. With all of these changes you're going to roll out starting here against the Longhorns. When did this all start, Ross? And who did you pull together? There had to be a consortium that you tapped upon for some of these ideas.
Yeah, thanks, Woody. And, as I got here, I started last July, but I was here with Gene Smith for about 4 months, overlapping. And so as the season was, being mapped out, I just wanted to observe. And, the first couple games, I sat there and I said, okay, I'm listening, I'm learning, I'm hearing the sound system, I'm hearing all the things that we do. And then, just as these games started building, right, we had to have a big crowd for Indiana. That's a tough game. We had to, obviously, the Michigan game. And so we brought in a mic man, we brought in some hype, but we kind of had to manufacture that. There wasn't a whole lot of sort of organic things. And so as we went through the season, we started saying, hey, look, we're going to research this. We're going to map out a strategy. We're going to be aggressive, but also smart. And so then we hired a consultant. We hired a guy named Johnny Greco with Shine Entertainment. And Johnny is an expert. I mean, he has helped NBA teams, NFL teams, NHL teams, other athletic departments. We brought him in. He reviewed a couple games. He was here in person, not only football, but also other events as well, basketball. And he helped kind of craft, the storytelling. And then Caleb Clark, he's our associate AD for marketing and live events. We really gave him full authority to run with a plan, analyze everything, work with Johnny, but then run with a plan. And then we wanted to listen to student groups. So Block O, ASG, we wanted to listen to fan groups. So we had some focus groups. We had some donors. We had our sponsors. We listened to some former players because we wanted to make sure, one, we're doing the right things and that this is what people want. And then we wanted to roll it out before the first game. We didn't want people to show up on game day and say, hey, what is this? So,
Right.
We're giving people 3 weeks to talk about it, learn about it, understand it, study it, debate it in some ways, ask questions. But it was a robust, fully baked process to get a lot of input to make sure that, we get it right as best as we can.
OSU AD Ross Bjork, our guest here on the Maverick. So, Ross, just like when you're filming a movie, a lot of it ends up on the cutting room floor. What did you want to get in but didn't get in that got, quote unquote, edited out?
Yeah, I don't think there was anything that was so radical that we said, oh my God, we can't do that. I think everything that we put together, again, was really well thought out. And it was really centered on, we called it tradition evolved. It was really centered on, okay, these are the traditions that are never going to go away, like hang on Sloopy, but do you modify it? The victory bell. The victory bell has a saying on the outside of it that says for vigor. Okay, well, that just doesn't have to mean after the game. That can mean that means effort. That means enthusiasm. So how do we infuse that into a buildup for our team to enter the field? So that was really the focal point, was taking things that were in place, but then amplifying that and making that just better. So I don't think there was anything other than maybe like Brutus flying in on a zip line or, some like logistical things that maybe some people had some ideas on. That,
Brutus's mom might have had a problem with that.
Some liability concerns as well. But other than some things like that, nothing. I don't think there's anything that we came up with that we said, we not quite ready for that. I think everything was really, really well thought out.
OSU AD Ross Bjork here with us on the Maverick. Now, Ross, if I may, why did you move the band from the south to the north end? Because it's
that's a great point.
It was deafening down there on the south end.
Yeah, the band obviously used to be in the north end zone right before the south end zone expansion. And, again, as we were working with the band, as we were working with Block O had a section in the north end zone and a section in the south end zone. Again, we want them to be loud as well. So let's get all of them together. So we expanded their section. That caused a ripple effect to say, hey, band, would you want to go back to the north? Look, we worked with them. We asked them if this is what they wanted to do. We didn't force it. We worked together to make this happen. They liked the sound coming out of the closed end of the north end zone. And then we said, you know what, let's put some microphones in front of the band. Let's put some speakers. Let's amplify their sound even more. They actually like it because it's easier for them to access with the ramp. It's easier for them to get to the field for halftime. So logistically, it was better. For the sound, it was better. It allowed Block O to expand. And then we are adding some premium seating in the south end zone for the fall of 2026. So it really was kind of a domino effect. And we think this will just be a better setting for everyone involved, especially, for the band.
OSU AD Ross Bjork here on the Maverick. Ross, before I let you go, I've got to ask you, because I know there's so many people that are not just casual fans, but deeply invested fans that are deeply uncomfortable with the state of NIL and revenue sharing. And, from when you were at your previous stops, this thing has just taken off like a rocket in the past couple of years. So I ask you, where is it going and when will it end?
Yeah, Woody, we probably have to do an hour-long or a 2-hour-long podcast to cover everything that's happening. But
I'm game if you are.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. We can set that up. Here's what I would say to everyone out there is, here's the 3 things that will not change. We will go to class, we will get an education for our athletes, we will develop young people, and we will play the games. Those 3 things are not going to go away. Now, everything in between that the economic model between the institution and the athlete, the NIL world on the third party basis. Yes, all of those things have evolved and changed, and some people are uncomfortable with that. But
how about
the
you?
fundamentals,
Are you comfortable with it?
No, I'm great with it. I embrace it. I really, as I've sat here my whole career, I've been in college athletics, over 30 years as an athlete at the Division II level. So I didn't have an NIL opportunity. We were lucky to get a cheeseburger somewhere, but we never adapted to technology. We never adapted to social media, to YouTube channels. We never really allowed our athletes to capitalize because we restricted this nomenclature called amateurism. So if we would have evolved over time, if we would have modernized, I don't think we'd be quite in the extreme positions that we're in. Athletes should be able to capitalize. Athletes should be able to use their name, image, likeness to do a commercial, to host a camp or a clinic, or have a YouTube channel. And we always said, nope, you can't do that. You can't do that because of this word called amateurism and the sanctity of, college sports. So I'm a big believer that our athletes should be able to capitalize, but we need rules. We need everyone to follow those rules. Everybody says they want structure, they want clarity, they want rules, but the closer we get to the field in terms of competition, people have broken rules over the years in college athletics. So that's what we need. We need the clarity. We need the runway to say this is what it is. So I think we're getting closer. I think there's some confidence that we can build in the system. So that's where I'm at is, everybody wants structure, but playing games, going to class, developing young people, those things are never going to go away because we're an educational institution that happens to play sports, and you got to embrace all sides of this.
It's a very level-headed, fair answer. I do have one final question. I know I said that was it.
No problem.
It was such a good sweeping answer. I thought of another question. Ross, where is the playoff field going to land? And do you think automatic qualification, do you think the Big Ten Conference ought to get 3-4 teams automatically in?
Yeah, lots of debate going on right now. We're a believer here at Ohio State, obviously within the Big Ten, that the playoff should expand, even though selfishly we could keep it at 4 and probably be okay for most years, right? I mean, based on our program. But I think we could expand up to 16 teams. And then the automatic qualifying spots would not just be handed to Big Ten teams. You'd have to earn your way. You'd have to play, obviously, the regular season. But we're really enthralled by these play-in games where you could have a weekend around championship weekend where you have to play your way into those spots. So it wouldn't just be handed to the Big Ten. It would be a play-in opportunity. The SEC could do the same thing. So I just think that the more we put in the hands of human beings and we don't earn it on the field, I think there's risk. There can be bias. There can be risk. What's the criteria to get into the playoffs? Is it strength of schedule? Do you just have to be 12-0? Well, if you just have to be 12-0, then games against Texas and Alabama that we have over the next couple of years, they won't exist.
Right.
We'll just load up and make sure that we're undefeated. So to me, we can earn it on the field. The AQ spots make sense. I hope we can get there. It's up to the commissioners. We can have our input, but really the commissioners need to get together and figure this out. And hopefully that happens sometime this fall.
Ross, it's really been a treat getting to talk to you for the first time. Thanks for joining us here on the
Thanks
Maverick.
a lot, Woody.
And I'm going to hit you back up for that podcast.
Okay. That long form podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We can go.
There's a lot to talk about.
We can go shoulder deep into revenue sharing and NIL. Ross Bjork, the fine athletic director, has been around, and we're lucky to have him here in Columbus on 103.9 The Maverick.